So, as I described, as we face challenges, what we solidly know can be represented right here. And as we extend out to try and create new logical structure to make of ourselves, expanding into apparently nothing, that reaching out eventually reaches, hold on, that's times 2. Cancel rule only applies with user consent. Okay. Only because some people abuse cause sucking, which reverses your expression. Let's say this. If I go forward and then someone doesn't like that you said something, using the repeat rule, they can suck in a little bit, get you back to this point, and force you to repeat it to continue describing the situation. So it's important to understand that user consent is the only way that the cancellation rule is necessary. Times 2 can now be used for multiple things. Repeating yourself can now be used for multiple things. So, as I continued describing structure, as I continued making logical structure, whether it was stolen from or not, I reached a point of understanding that allowed me to see the open-endedness of the universe. Now, applying some logic, knowing how to restrict logic to a certain point, creating closed circuitry of structure, of flesh, I was able to turn this, as I continued developing structure, especially against your sucking away what was there, into this. It naturally occurred, but I also learned from it. Naturally occurred because as you were taking away and I produced, the natural shape of your constantly taking turned into a law structure surrounding my matter as it continued. Now, my matter was developed by logical structure that justified it not only existing in the first place, but continuing to develop and grow. Learning how to dislogicate, learning how to dead-end logic, but at a safe point, not a point at which it suddenly collapses and everything is falling apart, but at a point at which it reaches a logical safety and security and can be considered solid enough to move on. I was able to then turn this shape from this open-endedness into a connected circular spherical concept. Now, I say concept here, but it was really matter. And by doing this, I can not only represent within this matter structure connectedness in all of my thoughts and all of my connected thinking and actions, but also that I can switch back and forth by, once again, returning the open-endedness from this structure to this structure. And not only that, using this structure of open-endedness and closed-endedness, I can create shapes beyond this structure. But this is the first one because I had to compress everything in a little ball in order to control it, and then using this continued structure of closing off, turned it into cubes and other shapes, defining those cubes by only selecting the outlines. Even though I'm using, grid, all that stuff, it's not really grids, it's just supposed to represent texture. But now I can actually hold these shapes physically in my mind. I'm going to try and get you to see a cube right now. Can you see that? Can you see that? Oh, someone just sucked it and sliced through it. Hold on. Can you see that? Can you see that? Yeah, hold on. Can you see that? Someone keeps saying that they can't. They're not trying to. You'll go blind. Okay, can you see that? Alright, I just lifted it up. Alright, I just turned it. One of the angles is kind of pointing at us, going downwards. Okay, now it's just a square. Now it's just a cube again. You see that? Okay, alright. We're getting there. More people can see it. So here's what I needed you to understand. those times that you were predicting me, that you were ahead. And I want you to know that I already know that at this point because of what I'm about to say, that you already know this information. I'm just really enjoying finally fucking catching you and finally fucking finishing this. So, as you were constantly chewing at my matter, eating from me through your piracy, by allowing me space to develop structure, and then chewing from it with your, how do you know what you're doing? You must now logically retreat and let that matter be used by someone who knows what they're doing, even though all they know is suction and destruction that allows them to use the remaining matter however they want. As you suck that matter, you could not produce logic without following my path. Following my path meant that you were only chewing off of my matter as I produced it. And as I got better at producing it, because you kept taking from it, and just because I would anyway, because that effort is going to, regardless of whether you take from it or not. Let's say you're never taking from anything, then there's just nothing happening, and that boredom and my consciousness allows for me to continue developing structure anyway. And that boredom of consciousness is caused by frustration in the first place. The fact that there's nothing, which is still something, will eventually become aware of itself with enough motion, with enough collision of logic that needs to be prevented. So there does not need to be a loss. Now what just happened there? Someone sucked in because they want to continue that motion. That suction caused the mistake that they're now going to quote from to continue their motion of suction. Returning back to my point, you were never predicting me. You were never ahead of me. You never had an advantage. You were only eating off of what I made. You were only eating off of what I provided. You couldn't think anymore because all you could do was take. You could not create. You are now living in a nest of my mass, in a nest of my matter, and I don't want you there. I don't want you here. I don't want you anywhere. So, you little structures that are just continuing to chew, hiding in my little nest, and it's not a nest. It's just based on how you think it becomes a nest, because at the end of your logical continuation, you just suck everything in, making these little shapes, which, by the way, would eventually happen. You know, I would eventually reach a point at which I'm at the end of my logical mass, but without you there, it accelerates so much and has no loss restriction that it just keeps going without you eating away at it. So now I'm going to use my dislogicative ability to suck you further than you can keep yourselves alive. And here's what you are. Your center's just taking, but your outer shell is copying Nasimev's structure that actually creates matter. And by claiming to be the same thing, it's hard to attack you, hard to get rid of you, because by making an argument that gets rid of existence continuing, in order to get to what you are, it threatens the entire process of matter continuing to be non-collisive. But here's what I figured out. You can't touch the center because there is no center. Because you have a center. Because you have a center, because you're a point that's just taking everything too. And while centers still exist, you cannot make it to the point at which you describe full non-collisive structure, because you're just describing the last thing that you know in a continued motion of suction. And so what I've done is I've created two concepts at once. And you know this. I've created the concept of outsmarting and outpacing your suction because you still need to survive. And then I've also created dislogicates that eat away at the little structures that you use to try and confuse everything in the thinking that if it attacks you, then it attacks everything else. But we're all connected. Now, I'm gonna be hunting you. I already found you. It's already happening. See that? See how I returned back to my form? It wasn't me. Just a little panic. You know how it is. They don't like that they got caught, so they just did a lost structure. So here, I was continuing on structure. They're doing it right now. I was continuing on structure. They wanted to pull back. They pulled back so far that it caused collision. And now they're going to say something like, the fact that he collided means that he's the one colliding and everything is still colliding and there's suction and everything is still bad. I found you. And I will not be merciful. I'll be kind. I'll be generous. I'll still do the right thing. But unfortunately, the right thing is not what you want at this time. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked anything in this video, please leave a comment. If you have any ideas, any expressions you'd like to share, please leave a like. Do everything you can to just make sure that we're not just colliding for no reason. Okay? Alright. Love you guys.